Rhiannon. Meanwhile, back in the meadow, Rhiannon thrashed on the ground, fighting to control her dark self. Finally, she regained control. Her appearance returned to normal. She found herself on her hands and knees before a small pond. Rhiannon looked down into the water, staring into her own reflection. But suddenly it changed. It turned into her cursed self, staring back at her. Dark Rhiannon spoke.
What are you doing? Don't let him escape. Kill him. He's the son of our enemy. No, you're the darkness itself. I can't let you take my soul. Fool. It's the only way to save our land. The wheels of our destruction turn as we speak. Behold.
The water on the surface of the pond rippled, and Dark Rhiannon's reflection dissolved into a vision. Rhiannon saw King Llewellyn's castle. She saw Llewellyn sitting on his throne. Beside him were King Aldith and her son, Prince Pryderi. John Peckham, the Archbishop of Canterbury, stood before him.
My lord, King Edward demands the following. English law shall prevail throughout Wales. All pagan religion is to be outlawed, its practitioners persecuted, and most importantly, the realms of Urvoniok and Arthequeth be surrendered to the crown as vassal territories.
King Llewellyn and his court were enraged by the demands.
Tell Edward that his terms for a peace are an insult. What does he take us for? His lapdogs? Leave us, Archbishop, and return not unless ye want your lying tongue pulled out.
John Peckham bowed and hastily left the room. King Llewellyn punched the armrest of his throne with his fist. King Aldith turned to him.
What now, me lord?
The bastards leave us with no choice. We must strike first, before Edward has time to muster his army.
Pryderi turned to Llewellyn.
But sire, are we not in a better position here? Protected in our fortifications? We can withstand a siege indefinitely.
Hiding in a castle? Edward would expect as much from us. He takes us for cowards. Fortune favours the bold in war, lad. Prepare the army. We march to Builth.
Pryderi nodded, reluctantly. The image dissolved into another vision. Rhiannon saw the Welsh army, led by King Llewellyn, marching out of their stronghold. A Welsh spy watched them go.
See how they fall. The little flies right into King Edward's web.
The vision changed again to an army encampment somewhere in the Welsh countryside. The Welsh spy kneeled before King Edward and Sir Cullen, giving his report. King Edward smiled.
Your son will die, and all will fall to ruin if you don't release me.
The image faded away as the vision ended. The water returned to normal. Rhiannon saw her own reflection once again.
No. I have to warn them.
Rhiannon whistled. Her white horse Becca appeared. She jumped on Becca's back and galloped off through the woods. But after she left, the reflection of the water changed. Dark Rhiannon appeared again.
You can run, Rhiannon, but you can't escape your fate.
A few hours later, miles away across Wales, Prince John was being pulled along by the two men who had taken him prisoner. He still had the hood over his head, and his hands were tied behind his back.
Who are you? Where are you taking me?
Quiet. You'll learn your fate soon enough.
The two men shoved Prince John into a tent.
Here's the prisoner, my lord.
One of the men yanked the hood off Prince John's head. He looked around and saw his father, King Edward, and Sir Cullen standing before him.
Father?
King Edward motioned for the men who had captured John to leave. After they left the tent, King Edward went up to John and threw his arms around him, embracing his son with a look of great relief and love on his face.
Thank God you're safe.
Then King Edward delivered a hard slap across Prince John's face.
And that's for defying my orders. You do it again and I'll lock you in the Tower of London till your bones creak.
Prince John rubbed his face.
I'm sorry, Father. I did it for Mother.
Your heart is true, but your aim was reckless. If you desire to be a wise king one day...
I found her, Rhiannon.
King Edward's eyes lit up.
Where?
She dwells in the woods, where your spies took me.
Did you put a knife in her heart?
I tried, but she was too powerful. She bewitched me. She would have killed me too, but I just managed to escape.
You're damn lucky.
Listen to me, Father. She's not what I thought she'd be at all.
How so?
She's more human and vulnerable than I imagined. She hates you, that much is clear. But I don't think she desires war. All she wants is for us to stay clear of her woods. The thing is, Father, she's cursed.
What do you mean?
She's wrought by the very black magic she unleashed upon you. It's like she's possessed by the darkness itself. It makes her extremely dangerous. She can't control it.
King Edward and Sir Cullen looked at each other.
Just like that night.
Aye, my lord.
We need to return with haste. We must find Rhiannon and destroy her. I fear this dark power will grow in might and unleash a great terror upon the land.
King Edward shook his head.
I'm afraid we have no time for witch hunts. We're on the eve of battle, one that will decide the fate of all of Wales and England.
What are you talking about?
Come.
King Edward led Prince John outside the tent. Prince John saw that they were on a hilltop, overlooking a huge encampment of thousands of soldiers. Prince John stared at the secret army in amazement.
Tomorrow, King Llewellyn will meet us in battle. He thinks he faces but a small English force near Builth. He has no idea of our true strength.
Most of the men you see before you are Welsh.
Prince John was stunned.
Aye, from the southern provinces. It cost me most of the gold in the bloody treasury, but I secured their loyalty to the crown. Llewellyn is a fool. He thinks all of Wales adores him. His pride and arrogance will be his ruin.
It's a brilliant plan, Father, but you're taking a huge risk. If fortune falters, we're all doomed.
That's why we shan't fail. I have a very special task for you, upon which much of our fate depends.
But what of Rhiannon? She has the powers to see the unseen. She could warn Llewellyn. Or worse, what if she brings her black magic to bear in the fight?
King Edward shrugged.
It's a chance we'll have to suffer. The die is cast. All we can do is pray.
King Edward patted Prince John on the back and headed back inside the royal tent. Prince John stared at the army with an anxious expression on his face. At that moment, not far away, King Llewellyn's forces were camped on a large river that separated them from King Edward's hidden army. A large wooden bridge, known as the Orween Bridge, spanned the wide river. King Llewellyn had men stationed on the bridge. Suddenly, they heard the sound of an approaching horse.
You hear that? Someone's coming.
The guards readied their pikes. They looked down the dark road that led across the bridge to the nearby woods, but they didn't see anything. Then suddenly, Rhiannon appeared. She was riding Becca straight towards them.
Halt!
Rhiannon ignored their command. She rode by them so quickly that they didn't have time to stop her. A soldier with a crossbow aimed his weapon at her, but the other sentry stopped him.
Hold, lad. It's Rhiannon.
Rhiannon rode onward, through the Welsh army camp, heading straight for King Llewellyn's tent. Inside the royal tent, King Llewellyn, King Aldith, and Pryderi and other generals were gathered around a map, going over their strategy. Just then they heard a commotion outside. They looked up as Rhiannon entered the tent.
Rhiannon?
Mother!
Pryderi rushed over to his mother, and they embraced.
What are you doing here?
I came to warn you.
Rhiannon turned to King Llewellyn.
My lord, you're heading into a trap. The English have raised a huge army.
That's impossible. If they marched a significant force all the way from England, we'd know of it.
They're not English. King Edward secured an alliance with the southern kings against us.
The men were stunned.
That's not possible.
It's the truth, my lord. Gold turns many a weak heart. They're lying await in the forest to ambush you as soon as you cross the river. Send scouts to see for yourself if you don't believe me.
King Llewellyn knew Rhiannon was telling the truth. His face boiled red with rage. He swiped all the pieces off his battle map.
Betrayed by our own people. I'll hang every one of those treacherous bastards.
The other generals, in a rage, began to argue. Finally, King Aldith banged his fist on the table to settle them down.
Fury won't save our cause. We need to think, quickly, and find a way out of this trap.
Pryderi bent down and picked the wooden pieces off the ground and placed them back on the map.
My uncle is right. Our enemies are here. But we're protected by the river. If we leave a rear guard to hold the Orwen Bridge, we can retreat safely back to the castle.
No, not one step backward. We look weak in the eyes of the people. More shall rebel against us.
As the men continued their debate, Rhiannon suddenly felt a pain in her arm. She looked down and saw black veins appearing under her skin. She clutched her hand tightly and silently willed the curse to go away. The black veins disappeared. She looked at the map.
My lord, you still hold the high ground on the side of the river. If King Edward attacks, you have the advantage.
Rhiannon's right. We're in a strong defensive position.
Aye. If the river can't be crossed, our enemies will have no choice but to cross the Orwen Bridge.
King Llewellyn moved the Welsh pieces in place on the map, positioning them on either side of the bridge.
We'll place archers here and here, and rows of pikemen to defend the bridge. If the traitors are foolish enough to attempt to cross, they'll be caught in the crossfire.
It's a good plan, sire. But it does have one flaw. We need to make sure the bastards don't find the ford upstream and flank us.
The river is low now. What if we could conjure up a storm to bring us some rain?
King Llewellyn and the others looked at Rhiannon.
What of it, ma'am? Can you stir a tempest?
Rhiannon thought. She rubbed her afflicted arm, then shook her head.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just too weak right now.
Are you sure, Mother? I've seen you call mighty storms before.
I'm telling you, I just can't right now. However, I can call upon the water of River Orwen if I say her secret name. The river will flood and sweep away anyone trying to ford her. That might drive them back.
Aye, my lord. And if you gave me a force of stout men to reinforce the bank, I should hold it.
King Llewellyn thought for a moment and nodded.
Very well. Go now. Spread the word to your men. Then get some rest. Tomorrow will be the day for our greatest triumph.
The men joined hands in affirmation.
For Wales.
For Wales!
Rhiannon, however, stood apart, rubbing her afflicted arm, looking at the map, concerned. It was the next morning. As the sun rose, the two armies prepared for battle. Men looked anxious as they donned their armor and prepared their weapons, knowing many of them would die. On the English side, King Edward patted Prince John on the shoulder as he mounted up to lead his special force. But suddenly, Sir Cullen rode up.
Sire, the Welsh are halting before the bridge in a defensive position.
What?
It appears that somehow the devils have figured out our plans.
Rhiannon!
Shall we call off the engagement, sire? Regroup?
King Edward thought for a moment.
No. This is our chance to end this war with a decisive victory. The witch is clever, but if we're bold, her designs will serve our ends. Prepare for an all-out assault on the bridge.
But sire, our men will be marching into a wall of steel and flint.
Precisely. Let them think us fools, marching right into the slaughter. Their overconfidence will chain them in place and make them slow to guard their flanks.
Sir Cullen smiled. He understood what the king was thinking. King Edward turned to Prince John.
Our fortune now turns on you alone, son. You must break through,
I will not fail you, father, my lord and king.
They looked into each other's eyes. King Edward squeezed Prince John's arm in a show of confidence. At that moment, on the Welsh side, Rhiannon gave Pryderi a bag of herbs to wear around his neck.
It's filled with water pimpernel and river startip. It'll bring you luck, but it can't stop an arrow or turn a blade. Be brave, but don't be foolish. Promise me.
I will, mother. Fear not. This will be a day of our greatest triumph. As long as we stick together, nothing can defeat us. The spirits are at our backs.
Rhiannon took a deep breath.
I pray so.
They embraced. Just then a horn sounded. It was coming from across the river. The English were coming. Sitting on his horse on a hilltop overlooking the Orwin Bridge, King Llewellyn turned to King Aldith.
Here they come.
Ready, men!
King Aldith scanned the woods near the bridge, but he couldn't see the English army at all.
Damn these woods. It conceals their force perfectly.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the river, King Edward gave a signal. His infantry began marching forward. As they marched, they passed a large group of mounted cavalry led by Sir Cullen, who stayed hidden in the forest. King Edward's infantrymen emerged from the woods and began marching towards the bridge.
There they are. Fire!
The English infantry tried to protect themselves with their shields and advance on the bridge, but the Welsh pikemen held them back. Caught in the crossfire, the English suffered heavy losses. On the hilltop, King Llewellyn was beside himself with delight.
Look at the devils. They're drowning in a sea of their own blood, and yet on they come.
They must want for a death.
Then we shall oblige them. Send in the reserves.
King Aldith, however, looked concerned.
Sire, don't be rash. We should hold back, just in case.
Nay, the day is ours. One final stroke and battle is won. Attack!
The Welsh reserves marched down the hill towards the bridge. Seeing this, Rhiannon and Pryderi looked worried.
What is Llewellyn doing?
The taste of victory is on his lips. He's committing our force to the last.
It's bloody reckless. Now we have no one to guard our backs.
Aye, but if we press through now, it won't matter.
Pryderi joined his men, cheering on the charge of the reserves. Rhiannon, however, eyed the woods warily.
I don't like this.
On the English side of the battlefield, a Welsh ally watching the one-sided fight turned to King Edward.
My men are getting slaughtered. We need to pull them back.
The Welsh ally raised his arm to give the signal to retreat, but King Edward stopped him.
I give the orders, not you. Be patient.
But King Edward muttered quietly to himself.
Come on, John.
Meanwhile, far down from the bridge, Prince John and his special force of men emerged from the woods.
Find a ford! Hurry!
A few soldiers on horseback tried to cross the river at various points, but the water was too deep. A raven flew over them, observing their efforts. The raven soared back over the river and returned to Rhiannon. It squawked at her. Rhiannon nodded and turned to Pryderi.
They're trying to cross. I'll stop them.
Rhiannon started running towards the river.
Wait, Mother! Damn it.
Meanwhile, Prince John heard the cries of the men at the bridge. He realized he didn't have much time. He stared at the water, studying it closely. He spotted an area where the eddies from the current looked different. He rode forward into the water. His squire called out to him.
Sire, let me test it. There's no time.
Prince John rode into the middle of the river. His hunch was correct. The water wasn't deep here at all.
Come on, lads. I found a ford. Follow me. Hurry.
John's men started coming over the river. Arriving at the river bank, Rhiannon looked down and saw Prince John in the middle of the stream. Her eyes went wide. Rhiannon made eye contact with Prince John. The two stared at each other for a moment as a mix of emotions washed across their faces. Pryderi saw his mother's hesitation and called out to her.
Mother, what are you doing? Stop them!
Rhiannon finally broke her gaze from John.
I'm sorry.
She said a chant in her ancient tongue, calling out to the river.
My dovroith an cascali, an troi, an codi, an chirvo.
Suddenly, the waters began to churn and gather up into a huge wave. Prince John looked at the gathering water in horror. If the wave hit them, John and his men would be drowned.
Look out, sire! Run!
But as Rhiannon continued to chant her spell, her eyes darkened and flickered with a glowing red light. The curse was taking her over again. Rhiannon fought back against the darkness, but her hands were trembling violently. She was having enormous difficulty, holding back the darkness and trying to maintain her spell. The wave was huge now. The spell was almost complete, but Rhiannon couldn't maintain it. Suddenly she let out a cry. Rhiannon fell to her knees. The huge wave collapsed, setting up a huge splash, but the river returned to normal.
No! No!
John waved his sword in the air and gestured for his men to cross the river.
Rally to me, men! Charge!
Prince John's men drove out of the river and up the bank. Pryderi's archers tried to hold them back, but English archers from the woods fired back. Pryderi's archers were driven back. Pryderi rode up to Rhiannon. She was lying on the ground, moaning. Pryderi jumped off his horse and rushed to her side. She looked up at him with tears in her eyes.
I'm so sorry I failed you. I'm too weak to use my full power.
It's all right, Mother. Do what you can. The battle's not lost yet.
Just then they heard a cry and looked up. Prince John and his men were scrambling up the riverbank, headed straight for them. Pryderi signaled his men to charge.
Come on, we can't give up!
Rhiannon rose up to her feet and gathered her remaining strength as the two forces smashed into each other. But as more and more English soldiers crossed the river, they soon became outnumbered and overwhelmed. In the midst of the desperate fight, Rhiannon and Pryderi made eye contact. A grim look filled their faces. They needed help. At that moment nearby, King Llewellyn and Aldith were surveying the battle from their hilltop. Suddenly Aldith noticed what was happening along the river. He gestured to King Llewellyn.
Look, sire! They're flanking us!
King Llewellyn turned and saw Prince John's assault making progress. Pryderi and his men were being pushed back towards the hilltop.
We'll be ruined if Pryderi can't hold the line.
Llewellyn turned and screamed at the pikemen on the bridge.
Reinforce the flank! Hurry! Fly, you fools!
The rear guard of Welsh pikemen on the bridge heard the command. They saw the skirmish taking place on the river behind them. The lead pikeman shouted out,
Bloody hell! Follow me, men!
The Welsh pikemen left the bridge and started running to reinforce Pryderi. However, this caused many of the Welsh soldiers around them to turn and join them.
What are they doing? Not all of you! Stay and hold the bridge! Stop!
Hold your tongue! I'm in command! They're coming over the river, not the bridge!
But sire, we can't see the whole of the force.
King Llewellyn ignored him. Meanwhile, by the river, the reinforcements from the bridge started to arrive.
Drive him back to the river. Don't let him break us. Fight with all you have for Wales, for freedom.
A roar went up from the Welsh soldiers. Inspired by Rhiannon, the Welsh fought with renewed vigor and determination. They managed to hold Prince John's force in place. For a moment, it looked like the Welsh might succeed in defending their position. However, at that moment, on the English side, King Edward sat on his horse, surveying the battle. He saw that the Welsh were spread too thin, covering the bridge and the flank. He smiled.
They've taken the bait.
He turned to his squire.
Now!
King Edward's squire blew into a horn. In the woods, Sir Cullen heard the signal. He lowered his helmet visor and raised his sword. The other mounted knights followed suit.
For God and England! Charge!
Sir Cullen and his heavy cavalry burst out of the woods and charged towards the bridge. The Welsh archers tried to stop them, but the cavalry was too quick. They smashed through the weakened Welsh defenders and began cutting the archers to ribbons. Now, all too late, King Llewellyn realized that he'd made a crucial tactical mistake. He screamed out to his pikemen running to join the fight against Prince John's men.
Stop! Go back to the bridge!
But it was too late. The Welsh soldiers were confused. They didn't know which way to go. They began to panic and flee. Just then, an English knight jumped in front of Rhiannon and tried to smite her with a mace. But a sword blocked the blow at the last minute. It was Pryderi. He cut down the English knight with his sword.
Run, mother! Get to safety!
No, we must protect the king or all is lost.
Rhiannon took off running towards King Llewellyn and Aldith. Pryderi followed her up the hillside. Nearby, Prince John looked up and saw Rhiannon fleeing towards the king. Prince John remounted his horse and rode after them. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, the fighting was vicious and bloody. The Welsh fought bravely, but they were in total disarray now. Men started to flee en masse. The battle was turning into a rout. Sir Cullen and his mounted knights fought the way to the top of the hill, where King Llewellyn and Aldith formed a circle around the banners of Wales. Rhiannon and Pryderi had joined them. A squad of English footmen charged the formation, but Rhiannon stopped her foot and cast a spell.
Daiar, Clochvi, Heiser, Hirfloch.
A small landslide sent dozens of men tumbling down the hill. But more enemies continued to come. Sir Cullen and his mounted knights arrived and started fighting hand-to-hand amongst Llewellyn, Aldith, and Pryderi. Prince John arrived and started to fight Aldith hand-to-hand. It was a pitched duel, with neither man gaining the upper hand. Nearby, King Llewellyn managed to slay a few foes, but a charging knight suddenly plunged a lance right through his breastplate. King Llewellyn spit out a mouthful of blood and fell from his horse. As he hit the ground, his crown rolled off his head.
My lord!
Pryderi rushed to King Llewellyn's side. King Llewellyn looked up at him with sad, fading eyes.
I failed you. God save Wales.
Llewellyn's eyes closed. His body went limp.
No!
Pryderi tried to lift King Llewellyn onto his horse. Nearby, Aldith saw the king was mortally wounded. Distracted by the sight, his sword was knocked out of his hands by Prince John. John put his blade to Aldith's throat.
Yield!
Aldith ignored his command. He grabbed John's blade and yanked it aside, cutting his own hand. He scrambled away from John and stumbled over to Pryderi and King Llewellyn.
My king! My king!
Once again, Pryderi and Aldith tried to lift King Llewellyn in their arms, but suddenly, Pryderi's eyes went wide. He looked down. A sword was protruding from his chest. He had been run through from the back. Pryderi staggered and fell to his knees. Sir Cullen was standing behind him. Rhiannon saw Pryderi fall and let out a gut-wrenching cry.
Daddy!
Sir Cullen yanked his bloody sword out of Pryderi. Rhiannon's eyes suddenly turned glowing red. In an instant, she transformed into her dark self. She let out a horrific, pain-filled shriek. Suddenly, beams of greenish light shot from her fingers. The beams hit Sir Cullen, and he burst into flames. Rhiannon turned. She was facing Prince John now. Her eyes were glowing red. and filled with malice.
You!
Rhiannon pulled back her hand, preparing to incinerate John as well, when suddenly... Dark Rhiannon was struck by a bolt from a crossbow. It had a silver tip. She fell backwards on the ground and lay writhing in the dirt. Her dark persona dissipated. The crossbowman moved in quickly to finish her. He loaded another bolt and aimed at the middle of her forehead. Rhiannon looked up at him, unable to fight back.
Go on, finish me, you bastard!
The crossbowman started to squeeze the trigger, then suddenly a hand pulled his weapon back. It was Prince John.
No, my father wants her taken alive.
The crossbowman nodded. English soldiers grabbed Rhiannon. They bound her hands and pulled a hood over her head. As they carried her off, Prince John turned to King Aldith, who was kneeling before the bodies of King Llewellyn and Pryderi. Tears poured down his face.
Do you yield?
Through his tears, Aldith slowly nodded. Prince John walked past the fallen banners of the Welsh laying on the ground. He raised his sword over his head and shouted out,
"Victory is ours! Hail to the Lord God Almighty and his faithful servant, King Edward!"
A huge cheer went up from King Edward's army. The surviving Welsh soldiers threw down their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. Many began to weep. Across the river, King Edward saw his son atop the hill beneath his banner. He smiled proudly. As the victory horns rang out, a tear of joy rolled down his face. It was the next evening. Inside a Welsh castle controlled by the English, the sound of music and revelry rose above the castle walls. Inside the main hall, a huge victory celebration was underway as English knights and their Welsh allies drank mead and sang songs together. Meanwhile, at that moment, in the bowels of the castle, the sound of groans and suffering prisoners chained to walls or locked in filthy cells could be heard. A burly man holding iron rods walked through the dungeon. He headed through a door. The burly man descended a flight of stairs and entered a candlelit room. There was a wooden cross with a carving of Christ on the wall. Prince John, King Edward, and the Archbishop, John Peckham, were there. Kneeling before them was a figure wearing a hood. Her hands were bound with a silver chain that was affixed to the wall. Inside the hood, the figure could only see darkness. The burly man pulled the hood off the figure to reveal Rhiannon. The crossbow bolt had been removed from her shoulder, and the wound had been wrapped in cloth. Rhiannon looked pale and feverish from her injury. She stared back at the men with hostile, defiant eyes. King Edward turned to Prince John.
"You're sure she can't cast a spell upon us?"
The chain that binds her is made of pure silver. It suppresses her power.
Rhiannon stared at them and coughed.
Can I have some water, please?
King Edward nodded, and the burly man gave Rhiannon a sip of water from a bucket.
"I've waited a long time to meet you again, witch."
Can't say I share the sentiment, Your Highness.
Rhiannon chuckled weakly. King Edward slapped her.
"You murdered my wife, you shameless wench! For 10 long years hence I've waited to sow vengeance upon you."
So take it. Have me flayed. You've won. Wales is yours. Do what you will. I don't care anymore.
If our positions were reversed, I have no doubt you'd suffer me the most wicked tortures your vile mind could conceive. But we are not as lowly and godless as you. I shall show you a measure of Christian mercy.
Indeed. You shall be given an opportunity to repent by confessing your sins before the Lord and all the people of the land.
Rhiannon shook her head.
You're going to burn me at the stake, is that it?
Unless you confess.
To what? Loving my country? Protecting my friends? What does it matter anyway? Even if I do repent, you're going to kill me anyway.
Aye, but we'll make it a quick end.
For the sake of your immortal soul, I suggest you redeem this generous offer.
Rhiannon spat at King Edward's feet.
That's what I think of your bloody god and your damn hypocrisy.
King Edward shook his head.
Very well. Come, let us leave this fell place and rejoin the feast to celebrate our triumph.
King Edward and Don Peckham turned to leave, but Prince John hesitated.
John, come.
I'll be there momentarily, Father. I wish to beseech the witch one more time to confess.
You're wasting your breath, but do as you please.
King Edward left. As John Peckham followed him out, he leaned over to the burly man.
Encourage her to loosen her tongue.
The burly man nodded and smiled a wicked grin. John Peckham left, shutting the door behind himself. The burly man went over to a fire where he'd been heating the iron rods he had brought. The ends of the irons were glowing bright red from the heat now. The burly man removed one and approached Rhiannon. Her eyes went wide as she realized that she was about to be tortured. Just then Prince John reached out and grabbed the burly man's arm.
Stop.
I take my orders from the king and the archbishop, not you, Prince.
The burly man shook John off and continued walking towards Rhiannon.
I will be king one day, and when I wear the crown, all that you do to her tonight, I will make sure is done to you as well.
The burly man paused, considering John's threat. Finally, he turned around and extinguished his burning rod in a water bucket.
Leave us.
The burly man scowled and exited the room. Rhiannon looked at Prince John.
Why are you sparing me? I killed your mother. Don't you want to see me suffer?
Why did you spare me? You could have drowned me at the ford, but you hesitated.
That's not for your sake. My powers failed me.
I don't believe you.
Well, I don't believe you either. I know you hate me.
I did. It's true. But something changed in me today.
John's mind flashed back to a moment at the end of the battle. He stood alone on a hilltop, with the carnage of the battle all around him. His expression wasn't one of triumph, but one of exhaustion and sadness. He looked down at the blood smeared all over his hands and armor. John began to walk down the hill. Crows were picking at dead bodies. Howls of pain filled the air. Welsh mothers, wives, and children wept over the bodies of their slain kin. Suddenly John stopped. He stared down at a Welsh boy, tugging at his dead father's body. The boy's mother tried to pull him away, but the boy refused to leave.
He's not dead, Mother. He can't be. He's just sleeping. Get up, Father. Please. Get up. Get up. Get up. Father. Get up.
The boy began to sob uncontrollably. Looking on, tears welled up in Prince John's eyes. Back in the dungeon, Prince John looked haunted, remembering the moment.
After the victory trumpets echoed away, the euphoria of the moment quickly faded. I felt a terrible emptiness and shame for all the destruction my actions had wrought. There is no glory in war, just death and suffering.
John glanced over at a cross hanging on the wall.
I have no desire to bring any more unhappiness into this world. I understand now why Christ said what he did on the cross, when he asked God to forgive his enemies. I never understood until now. He was trying to teach us what true love is. It means not caring for just yourself, or some, but for all.
Prince John looked back at Rhiannon. He thought for a moment, and then let out a deep sigh.
Even those you have every right to hate. I forgive you, Rhiannon.
I don't need your bloody forgiveness.
Aye, but you'll get it anyway.
John walked over to Rhiannon. They looked deeply into each other's eyes.
I wish things could have been different between us. I see now what you really are. Not a heretic, not a witch, but a woman protecting her country, same as father protects ours. I was wrong about so many things. Alas, I can't change your fate, or what's happened, Rhiannon. But I can try to do better, to heal the wounds that plague our lands and our souls. Starting with you.
You have been thinking a lot, Prince. This is all very sweet. But what have you really learned? For all your talk of true love, you still butchered my people, conquered our land, killed my son. You can forgive me all you like, but I'll never forgive you. Never!
Tears ran down Rhiannon's face. Prince John hung his head, saddened that there could be no peace between them. He turned away quietly and left. As Rhiannon's tears continued to flow, they landed in front of her and formed a small puddle on the floor. Rhiannon's eyes drifted downward. She could see her reflection reflected in the puddle of her tears. But it wasn't her looking back. It was dark Rhiannon.
Tears won't save you, or the things you love, but there is a way you can still win.
Rhiannon looked at her dark self in horror.
Go away, leave me. Foolish girl! I am part of your very soul. That's why you can't drive me off.
Dark Rhiannon touched her hair and then stroked her own cheek gently.
I'm you. Your pain is my pain. Stop fighting me. I'm trying to help you.
Dark Rhiannon whispered in a voice full of malice.
Your hate and anger feeds us. I'm full with it now, like a mother-bearing child, ready to give birth to the greatest triumph the land has ever known. Tomorrow, the king and all your enemies will be gathered there to laugh and mock you as you burn. At that moment, call my name. It's the ancient word for night, and I shall answer. Let go of my chain and we'll smite them with a curse of death and darkness so terrible that England will never rise again. Everything from here to London will wither and die. But what of our own people? Will they not also be consumed? Yes, but this winter will pass eventually. Wales will be born anew, better than before. I can't do it. I can't kill my own people. Not even to save them.
Dark Rhiannon's eyes blazed red.
You must. This is war. These great croon men will bring death and destruction to everything they touch. I will show thee what will come to pass. Behold!
In the pool of water's reflection, Rhiannon suddenly saw a vision. She saw forests of Wales cut down and factories belching smoke, people living in squalor, as avalanches of coal slag buried whole towns.
Stop! I can't stop it. Only you can.
The vision of dark Rhiannon dissipated and was suddenly gone. Rhiannon stared at the floor, looking shocked and devastated. It was the next morning. A large crowd of Welsh peasants had gathered in the town square outside the castle. Among them were Dylan, Becca, Gwen, Jock, and Effa, along with other residents of the village. There were mixed emotions in the crowd. Most looked angry and disheartened. Some were weeping. But others who supported the English were happy. Suddenly a trumpet sounded. The crowd went silent. The gates of the castle lifted slowly upwards, and a procession left the fortress. It was led by a contingent of pikemen and crossbowmen. This was followed by Prince John, King Edward, and their Welsh allies riding on horses. Their faces were grim. Prince John in particular looked deeply saddened. As he rode slowly past Dylan and his family, he made eye contact with Gwen. The royal contingent dismounted and took their places on seats surrounding a large wooden stalk set up in the middle of the town square. As Prince John dismounted from his horse, Gwen pushed her way through the crowd and came over to him.
So it's true? You are the prince? I knew you were lying to us.
A guard pushed her away.
Get back!
Stop. Let her be.
The guard backed off. Prince John looked Gwen in the eye.
It's true. I lied. I'm sorry.
Gwen shook her head. It was a little late for an apology.
I just want you to know that of all those I deceived, I regret the lies I told you the most. My feelings for you were never false.
A look of mutual regret passed between them.
You have to stop this. Please.
I can't.
Just then, someone in the crowd shouted out,
Look! Here she comes!
A cart left the castle. Riding in the front was John Peckham, the Archbishop. Rhiannon rode in the back of the cart. Her hands were tied behind her back, and 6 guards surrounded her. Rhiannon's raven circled overhead, calling out to her. But Rhiannon didn't respond. She stared down at the ground with vacant, lonely eyes.
Rhiannon!
Gwen rushed over to her. The crowd surged forward, crying out support for Rhiannon.
The lady! The lady!
But the guards aimed their weapons at the unruly crowd.
Out of the way! Get back!
As the guards cleared the road, the crowd hurled insults at them and reached out for Rhiannon. Others, however, cheered for the English.
Burn the bloody witch! Send her filthy soul straight to hell!
Rhiannon didn't react to any of this. She seemed to be in a daze. The guards were finally able to get the crowd under control. The cart arrived in the square, and Rhiannon was escorted over to the stake. She was tied to the pole as a guard threw piles of wood at the base. John Peckham came over to her. He was holding a scroll in his hands. Trumpets sounded again.
Rhiannon of David, you have been found guilty of preaching heresy against the Lord and practicing the dark arts of witchcraft. As punishment for your wickedness, you have been condemned to death.
The crowd booed and cheered. Things became unruly again. King Edward stood up and shouted out,
Quiet!
The crowd settled down. Prince John hung his head, too upset to intervene. Tied to the stake, Rhiannon finally lifted her head and looked up at the crowd. Her eyes fell upon Dylan and his family. Her expression softened at the sight of her old friends. She glanced up and saw Prince John. They stared at each other for a moment. He looked heartbroken by what was happening. Rhiannon turned away from him. She could not bear his gaze. Then Rhiannon's eyes fell upon her enemies, King Edward and the Archbishop. A look of contempt filled her features. The black veins suddenly began to creep across her hand. John Peckham stepped in front of her and held a cross aloft.
For the sake of your everlasting soul, Rhiannon, do you renounce Satan and accept the Lord Jesus as your Savior?
Rhiannon stared at the cross, thinking deeply. Her lips started to tremble. A hush fell upon the crowd. She looked at John Peckham with a powerful stare so defiant that it caused him to take a step back.
I've done many things that I regret in my life.
Rhiannon looked at Prince John and King Edward.
And to those I've hurt, I'm truly sorry.
She turned back to John Peckham.
But I shall never agree to your lies about me. My true love has never been the devil. Only the land and the people of Wales.
The crowd let out a cheer. John Peckham scowled.
Very well. Burn her.
The Archbishop gave a signal. The torturer from the dungeon stepped forward and put a flaming torch to the wood pyre at Rhiannon's feet.
Rhiannon!
Prince John leaped to his feet and tried to intervene.
Stop!
But King Edward held him back. As the flames leaped up and started to consume Rhiannon, her raven let out a terrible shriek. The Welsh villagers tried to rush forward to save Rhiannon, but the English soldiers held them back. Gwen turned away. She couldn't watch. John Peckham smiled. But even King Edward was put off by the spectacle and averted his gaze. Prince John closed his eyes and clasped his hands together in prayer.
Forgive them, my lord, for they know not what they do.
Rhiannon started to cry out in agony as the flames rose around her. But suddenly, in the midst of her agony, Rhiannon heard the voice of her cursed self.
Now, Rhiannon, call me, fray me, ruin them all. It's the only way.
Rhiannon's lips trembled. She was going to say something with her last breath, but through the smoke, she saw Gwen and her family. Suddenly, Rhiannon uttered a word.
Ysgofyn!
It was a word in Welsh that meant light. The cursed spirit of Rhiannon recoiled at the sound of it.
No! Stop! That'll bring death and destruction to all that you love. Kill them all!
With her dying breath, Rhiannon whispered one final spell.
Light, come unto me, and cleanse my soul and the land so that all shall live.
The vision of cursed Rhiannon let out a shriek and disappeared into the smoke, just as the flames roared up and consumed Rhiannon. Her crow let out a mournful cry to signal her passing. The crowd wailed with grief as the pyre continued to burn down. Even Rhiannon's enemies in the crowd were stunned by the horror of it all. King Edward let out a deep, regretful sigh. John Peckham turned to him with a triumphant look on his face.
She's gone.
Put it out, now.
As you wish, sire.
John Peckham signaled his assistants to douse the burning stake. As the flames were extinguished, they threw a sheet over Rhiannon's charred remains. The crowd was weeping, heartbroken, but still they remained, fixated by their grief. Then suddenly, Rhiannon's raven looked up into the sky as if it had become aware of something. Just then, a small, colorful bird swooped down out of the sky and landed at the foot of the pyre. It started to chirp loudly. It sounded almost like a song. Prince John and the others noticed the bird and stared at it curiously. Soon the little bird's song was taken up by other birds, who started to gather and land all around the town square. Gwen turned to her father.
What's happening, father?
I don't know.
Then, faintly, an ethereal voice could be heard, carried by the wind.
It's Rhiannon! The spirit is singing to us.
She's free now.
Everyone looked around in amazement as the song continued. Carried by the wind, it echoed through all the fields and towns and forests of Wales. Through his tears, Prince John smiled. He knew that Rhiannon's spirit lived on. Years later, writing in his diary, he would recall the moment.
I cannot explain what happened that day, but I have no doubt that in choosing the path of light, Rhiannon's soul finally found peace. As for my father, he never spoke of her again. After he passed on, I was crowned King Edward II, ruler of England and Wales. I've tried my best to remember the lessons I learned, to be strong but fair, compassionate and wise. But I'll never forget her. Neither will the people.
Countless years passed from the time of Rhiannon and Prince John, but as the years came and went, the legend of the Lady of the Woods continued to grow. It was late afternoon on a fine spring day. In the woods that Rhiannon once called home, a thoughtful teacher was overlooking a group of students as they picked up trash and planted saplings The sky was growing dark. The teacher checked his watch and called out to his students.
All right, it's getting dark. We'd better head back to town.
As the students gathered their things and left, one young girl, Effa, lingered a moment as she planted one last sapling. Then suddenly Effa stopped. She heard something. It sounded like an ethereal voice being carried by the wind. Effa began to follow the sound of the voice through the woods until she arrived at the spot where the sacred meadow once stood. The stones were covered with moss now, barely visible. A huge tree had grown where the stump used to be. Effa looked around, and then suddenly her eyes went wide. On the far side of the meadow, she saw the silhouette of a woman on a stunning white horse, prancing in the moonlight. It looked like a ghostly vision. Effa whispered.
Rhiannon.
Indeed, it looked like Rhiannon, no longer cursed, but young and beautiful again. Effa watched her as she sang her haunting song and rode away on her stallion under the moon and the stars. End of Rhiannon. Stay tuned for more great stories of mystery, magic, and suspense on